Hi, Billy. Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you work in visual effects, is that right?
Visual effects in, for the past 3 years, virtual production, which
Yeah.
is the big LED screen kind of stuff.
So that's what you did on the Doctor Who episode Boom from this year.
Yes,
Okay.
a lifelong dream realized, but yes, that's what we did. We brought virtual production to Doctor Who.
Okay. So for those who don't know, because I think it is quite a new technology, isn't it? Sort of cutting edge. And I'm not an expert in the slightest, so it'd be really useful to hear you explain sort of in simple terms what virtual production means and how that works.
Sure. So virtual production is where, when it involves an LED screen, is where we build a wall, or it could be a 360 environment, meaning the wall wraps all around the stage. But it's composed of LED panels. They're basically miniature TV screens. And when they all put together, there's no seams. So it just makes this giant video screen, basically. And normally when you see behind the scenes of visual effects shoots, you'll see blue screen or green screen, which is still used, obviously. But the advantage of doing virtual production is that the image is live. So you see it in camera and you get lighting from the screen and you get reflections and stuff. It just looks better. And the actors can see the environment they're working in. So they don't have to, spend too much of their energy trying to visualize what it's going to be instead of just an empty stage. And we use a game engine, the Unreal Engine, which is a gaming engine that you may have heard of, to make the environments. And we do that so it can be live. So the camera is being tracked. So when the camera moves around, the image on the screen compensates for the camera position. So it doesn't look like it's just displaying an image. It looks deep. So when the camera moves around, the background responds like it's supposed to. And a lot of times you're done. No visual effects required. So that's kind of the cool new thing.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Like, what is it about the technology that you think why has it taken this long for us to be able to do that?
That's a great question. So the issue is, when you're playing a game and you're into it, and there's a whole bunch of stuff happening on screen, and then it starts to stutter, and it's like it drives you nuts. So you can't have that on a TV show or movie. So we had to wait till the horsepower of these computers and the processors and the video display technology could get to the point where we could run it at 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second. So there is no latency. And also the picture quality is improved steadily. It's like, I think they say dog years are 7 human years per dog year. I say it's kind of like that with this technology. It's going so fast that last year is a completely different game than this year. So it's pretty exciting.
Wow. Yeah, because I was reading, was it 2019 with The Mandalorian? It was starting to become...
Yep. And before that, actually, it was being used on Rogue One and I think maybe Solo, where they did the hyperspace jump in the Millennium Falcon, and you saw the actual hyperspace effect through the windows. It was lighting the characters. That's actually when it was being tested and used in little baby scenarios. But then they went big with the Mandalorian.
Cool. And so, like, you told us about all the advantages that it has in terms of, the reflections of the light and for the actors as well. Working with it, especially as it's such a new technology, like, are there any particular challenges that come with it?
Yes. So when we talk about this, you might even have it in your head at the moment where it's visual effects, because it's not quite visual effects. It uses the same kind of technology and techniques to generate what you're going to see on the screen. But visual effects happens after you shoot. So, in post, a TV show could have 4, 5, 6 months of post after they wrap on stage. So the difference here is that you have to have all that stuff done and ready to display when you shoot. So it's a mindset where we have to think about preparing all this content. It's like really building a stage. So if you're building a set, you have to build a set and have it ready for the day. And the challenge is it's such a new kind of thought process on how to do it. It's a lot of times if you don't get into a production in a timely manner, you won't have enough time to make it look really good. So that's the thing. And also, it's not good for broad daylight. Like if you have a sun, like a direct sunlight, like I'm outside and it's 2 p.m. on a clear day, the rare clear day in the UK. And it's a little bit of that because it's basically a giant light source if you think about it. So if you have a giant window with like some transparent curtains, it gives you this big soft light and there's no shadows. So that's kind of what you get with an LED wall. Is you can't mimic hard shadows like a sun,
Right.
but there's ways around it. So and that's also improving as we go along.
And so when you're shooting on the day, how much leeway do you have? Say, say you're looking at it and you think, well, that's not working quite right, and you want to change something.
What we try to do is we get in with the creatives of the show. We go over what is possible and what's not possible, and we get in. I like to try to get in early. Like on Doctor Who, I was there a month before we started shooting, just getting to know everybody to answer the questions because I say it's new and weird and wonderful and scary and exciting. So to be able to get there and talk about it, we get to the point where we run out of questions before we do the shoot. And that means that we know that we can't do something like if we wanted to do massive changes in the landscape, like the battlefield from Boom. If we wanted to drastically change the material where we wanted the soil to be a different color, or we want to add some stuff that we hadn't prepared for, that would be more challenging. But a lot of times we have already anticipated what the creatives might want because we have that relationship. And for me, it's always about relationships. We get together, we talk about it, and we collaborate. And me and my team, we get an idea of what they're into and what they may ask for, so we're ready for it. Like on Boom, Julianne Robinson, who's a friend of mine, lovely, lovely lady. She was the director of that episode. And she's like, Billy, can you put the TARDIS right there? And we're like, I sure can, because we were ready for it. And we were just moving around in real time. I think that's seen in one of the behind the scene clips where we have Sepp, who is my virtual art department supervisor. And he was back there on the computer running Unreal. And we just move the police box around closer, further away for whatever the shot. And then if it's like the composition doesn't really work, we can just rotate the world a little bit. So it's a really cool creative tool. Because you get a lot of leeway. We've set up a scenario where they're not going to ask for too many things that we can't really do because we've already had those conversations. And if we do ask for something, or the client asks for something on the day that we can't do, we just explain why we can't, and then we try to do something to help them get the creative idea out on screen that they're looking for. So it's that collaboration kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a bit about how you got into visual effects and then also how you then got into working with the virtual production?
I've always been fascinated with visual effects, and it's going to be cliche, but it's Star Wars is which really got me into it. And I think I saw it like 12, 14 times in the theater. And that's in 1977. So like it's not on video, it's actually in the theater. And I was seeing it, so it was kind of a big deal back then. And I told my mom that that's what I want to do for a living is Star Wars, whatever that meant. So fast forward to high school and college or university, I'm studying film and television and doing creative projects with video cameras and trying different visual effects stuff, building models. And then after university, I got a job in Industrial Light and Magic, which was awesome. And everything I planned doing in my head, like, it better be good because I want to show it to ILM. That was always in the back of my mind. And I was obsessed with it and a healthy obsession. But it got me there. And I got an interview when I was visiting a friend who worked there. He said, do you want to come see the Enterprise E for First Contact? I'm like, hell yeah, I do. So I was living in North Carolina. So I flew over the United States to California, and we stopped by the model shop on a Sunday where nobody was there except one person that was working on a little model outside. And we walked in that place and I almost fainted because this place was chock full of real models from the movies that you like, hoverboards from Back to the Future, the house from Death Becomes Her, the Scoleri brothers from Ghostbusters 2. Just everywhere my eyes are darting, I was recognizing things from all my favorite movies. It was amazing. So then I got a job there. I interviewed and got a job there, moved from North Carolina to ILM, worked for about 6 or 7 years, Men in Black 2, Galaxy Quest, Empire Strikes Back twice for the special edition, E.T. special edition, and some other ones I forget about. But then I moved to LA worked at different places there, got into animation, worked on Cloud with a Chance of Meatballs, Kung Fu Panda, to The Croods, just all over the place, really. And then I started my own visual effects shop, just a little kind of virtual, where people were working remotely wherever they are when it was cool, before it was cool, actually, and then it became cool. So it gave me the freedom to collaborate. The interesting thing about owning my own shop is that it wasn't like someone comes to you and here are the instructions on how to do what we're looking for. It's like, hey, can you help us? And I would collaborate, where it's like we would think together on how to achieve what they're looking for. And I met some amazing people doing that. Alan Tudyk is one of my good friends, and you may know him from Star Wars and like basically everything. And he's a super awesome guy. And he and his wife and me and my husband are buds, and they're just the best people in the world. And then that led to the sort of revolution of what I was seeing in The Mandalorian. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty new and exciting. Like, that's new. And in visual effects, it's kind of the same stuff over and over and over. I mean, there's different variants of it, but it's kind of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not like a dinosaur moment from Jurassic Park anymore. You know what I mean? It was like, it's just an improvement on what's there. But then virtual production rocks up with something that's completely new, and I love it. So I closed up my shop and went back to Industrial Light and Magic because that was the epicenter of this whole thing. And I told him I wasn't interested in working on Star Wars TV shows. I know that's heresy, but I'd already done it, and I wanted to work on something else. And it was working with Gareth Edwards one-on-one, and he's a good buddy of mine now too, just an awesome guy. And we worked on The Creator, and I was one-on-one working with him on visualizing the third act when they're on the big space station, the Nomad, at the end of the film. He and I are working on what happens, and it's all in Unreal. I'm moving around in Unreal. He's in a VR headset at his house. So he's looking in the environment in like VR. I'm moving the stuff around, and it was just an amazing collaboration. And then the next project was Marvels, which I came over to the UK, and keep in mind, I was living in California through all this stuff. I came over to the UK and shot at Pinewood for 4 months in the Marvels and fell in love with the UK. My husband came over here and he was like, this shit is awesome. I'm like, I know, we should move here. And then I joined the current studio I'm with is called Pixelmondo. And they gave me the freedom just to sort of pursue my healthy obsession with relationships. And then I think the second day when I was at Pixelmondo, I'm like, we need to get on Doctor Who because it's such a great fit for this technology. And obviously, I'm a huge fan. I've been a fan since Tom Baker in the early 80s. So I'm like old school.
Yeah.
And, I built my own K9 like in high school. So it's like, this is not new for me. And I was doing digital TARDISes, and let me finish the story and remind me to tell you about Stephen Moffat. So it just happened that Julianne was actually the director was working on Doctor Who, and it just was kismet. I'm like, oh my God. So I reached out to her, and then throughout, meeting everybody at Bad Wolf, just the best people in the world, just the sweetest, nicest, kindest people. And then I said to my husband, we really need to move here because it's so great. And I ended up coming here for another 4 months into Cardiff last year to shoot Boom. And it was just amazing. I mean, everybody was so welcoming. And you know what they say about Cardiff is like, this is the nicest city in the UK. And I believe it because it was just such a refreshing change. Not that there's not nice people in LA, of course, but it's a different flavor. Yeah. So it's a different vibe here, and we loved it. So I moved here, and yeah, it's been great. So it's a very long answer to your question, but that's great. That's kind of yeah. So
and you were going to say about Stephen Moffat.
So I was obsessed with this show, since the early 80s, right? And I was working in a company at one point that was doing VR content, and at that time, you would put a Samsung phone in a little device that had lenses on it, and you would display the images and put it up to your face using a phone as attached to this device. It was kind of early days. And I was working at a company that was able to generate amazing quality images that nobody else was doing. So I know it was unique. And of course, the thing I had the environment, the inside of Capaldi's TARDIS, the control room, and I had it as a fan because I'm obsessed with this. So I was just playing with it as a fan, and I said I should do this in VR. Let's check it out. So I did it, and I had it where I was showing it to some people, and eventually Alan Tudyk got me to Comic-Con in the Green Room at Hall H. This was the year following where I got engaged in Hall H, and that's a whole other different story.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that in a minute.
Okay, good. So the year after that, I'm like, hey, Alan, the Doctor Who people are going to be right after your panel for Dirk Gently. Yeah, one show that Alan was on. He said, yeah, of course. So I get there, and I have it with me, and I show Stephen Moffat, hey, because they walked in, and I'm like, hey, Stephen, I knew you were going to be here, and I was here with my friend Alan. I'd had something to show you. He's like, yeah, okay, cool. I showed it to him. He was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You should show Mark. I'm like, huh? And I take it off after I set it up for him. And Mark Gatiss is standing next to me now. So I show it to him, and Michelle Gomez comes over, and I show it to her. And it was really cool because it was like, I wanted to try to do some kind of project, but then I realized, I remember this is 4 years ago, not anything to do with what I'm doing now. But I felt at the time, it's like, this is enough. I'm just going to put it away now. I don't want to be the creepy guy trying to push this or make it weird. So they were liking it, and then I just put it away. And it was just a really nice little Hollywood moment. And then fast forward to last year, where I asked Stephen when I showed him, like, do you remember when I showed this to you? He's like, yeah, the VR guy. So that was great. So it was a cool experience.
Yeah, nice full circle moment in a way.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I was reading online about, I saw that there's a video where you got engaged during a panel at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Which is just sounds like such a lovely story. It
was, I can't be surprised too much. I obsess on details when I see them, so it's hard to surprise me. But I was working on Con Man's, the series, and it's Alan Tudyk's series about conventions and the fandom, and it's hilarious. And I was on that show, and the Obama administration had just made it legal in all states to get married, like legalized it across the country. And Barry, at our wrap party for Con Man, went up to the producers and said that he would love to propose to me at Comic-Con. And they said, oh my God, that'd be perfect. It just fits the whole vibe of the show. So they arranged it, and I'm going down to Comic-Con, which I used to go to all the time because I lived in Los Angeles. So we're going down there with the show, and we are told that we're going to go on stage at Hall H, which is the dream as a nerd. Hall H is where all the big shows go, 7,000 people in the audience. Star Wars, Walking Dead, that's where all the big stuff happens. And I'm going to be on stage with Will Wheaton, Mindy Sterling, Seth Green, Alan Tudyk, Nathan Fillion, Tricia Helfer. The whole cast is there. And I'm like, what is happening? This is amazing. And it was fake because it was a setup. And my husband was on stage with me, and he did makeup on the show. Like, there's a couple of scenes where there's like zombies, and Barry did the makeup for the zombies. And I was getting mad during the panel that we were sitting next to Will Wheaton, and Chris Hardwick was asking questions all the way up to Will, and then we'll go back to the beginning. And I was like, what the hell? Why is he not asking us questions? I was getting mad. And Barry saw, and he was acting really weird behind stage before we went on. I was like, it'll be fine. Why are you so nervous? But we get up there, and then at the end of the panel, Hardwick asked Alan, it's like, one more thing, right? And Alan realized, yes. So he went and grabbed me and Barry out from behind the table, brought us in front of the table. And I was like, what is going on? Because Barry's talking a lot, and usually I'm the one running my mouth. And he said something like, and this is you can find it on YouTube, but he basically said something like, he's wondering why I'm up here with all these, the cast and crew. And I'm like, in my head, yeah, I am wondering why you're up here. And then he proposed to me in front of 7,000 people, and the entire auditorium just stood up and were cheering, and it was just the most amazing thing. And I was in shock for 4 hours, and I'm not just like being dramatic this time, where it was, all I could say is I look at somebody and like, did you know? Did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know? Because he got me, and on an epic scale. So it was the most amazing experience. And Alan and Nathan and PJ and Chris Hardwick, they were all in on it. And it was just such a love fest. And it's like, yeah, one of the most amazing experiences in my life.
Yeah. Good job you said yes. I mean, that would have been awkward.
I did actually, as a joke, say, I don't know. But it was a joke, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And Barry is as big as a nerd as I am. And his genre is horror, mine sci-fi. And luckily they cross over pretty well. And he got more into sci-fi. I got more into horror. And it's a great matchup. And he was happy to move to Cardiff because we wanted to get out of the United States for reasons and that we all probably know about.
Yeah.
And just wanted something new. And honestly, it was a people both in London, where my office is in London, but I live in Cardiff, and just the people of Wales are just the most amazing group of folk. And it has been a dream. So, and obviously the people on Doctor Who and at Bad Wolf are just the nicest people in the world. And they exhibit gratitude. And that's the most important thing when you work really hard, because you always do more than is necessary for the show because you want everybody to be happy. And there's genuine gratitude, and it's not, they're not shy about showing it. And they're just the nicest people in the world. And I love them.
Especially like what you were saying about the people of Wales, because I'd like to spend more time in Wales. Like, from when I've been, it is just full of very lovely people. It's also especially nice to see in the recent general election that we had, and I think there's not a single Tory seat in Wales now, which is just like and I'm slowly getting the landscape of politics here, but it sounded like a pretty massive upgrade. That's great. So you've been a huge fan of Doctor Who all your life, and Star Wars as well, and to have ticked those off, as to have worked on both of them as well, that must just feel so satisfying.
And I'm very grateful for those opportunities. I do not take it for granted because it's a huge thing. The Star Wars thing was amazing. I made R2-D2 fly. That was me, and the rockets are named after me in books, thanks to Don Beese, who was the droid master at ILM and working and building the robots. But it was a dream come true. I had the real R2-D2 in my office for a year working on him when I was working on the prequels, and then always wanted to work on Doctor Who. I remember building, as I said, my own K9 out of cardboard and poster board, foam core in high school, and the police box. Like I had it all. I was making it in the early 80s. So the show, I will say the show did two things for me. Help neutralize my Southern accent, because it's a British show, because my native accent sounds like this. So I had to try to neutralize it. And that show actually helped me do that. But the other thing it did for me, and I'm sure that you can appreciate this, is that it showed me how to be kind and to help people. And it really just gave me a sense of gratitude for the whole universe, basically, and how to do good and to help people. And escapism, too. That was the other thing, because I lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. And the show helped me sort of just think, I can't believe I'm going to say this, out of the box. Thank you very much. I'm here all week. But you know what I mean? It helped me sort of think of there's a bigger universe beyond this field of cows that I'm looking at. And so it's so ingrained into my life. When I first got to the show, I didn't want to reveal how much of a fan I was, so it didn't freak anybody out. They wouldn't have cared. But I was slowly, my license plate says Bad Wolf from California. They're like, oh, that's cool. And then I started like, oh, and also, because I didn't want to scare them, because I come from Hollywood and that's a scary behavior. But it was so lovely that Russell himself loved the fact that I was such a hardcore fan. And he was just so nice about it. And then I was able just to drop my guard and just, be who I am as a fan. But what it translates to when you work on something like this is you have passion and reverence for the show, meaning you're not going to do anything but your best to make it as good as you can for your own fandom inside, but also everybody else that watches it, so that would love it. that's my segue to one of the things that I did on the show. I was obsessed with wanting to see the inside of the TARDIS and the outside of the TARDIS at the same time in camera.
Yes.
So instead of a Duratrans, which is a transparent photograph of the control room that you would see from the outside of the police box, I had an obsession on how to do that in camera, but it's real. So when the camera moves around, you see it and it just works. And so that was my little side project. And my team was working on the environment, and I was obsessed with getting this to work. And a couple of team members were like, yeah, that'd be cool. And they were helping me do it. But it was important to me because as a fan, I've always wanted to see that because you know the drill in the old days, and actually just because of costs and stuff, they'll open the TARDIS doors and they'll open it just a little bit and like, okay, we'll see it, bye. And they're out because you don't want to reveal. And we all know it's a photograph of the inside of the console room, but who cares? Because we don't care. But I love the show and I don't care, but I also do care when I can have something, if I can contribute to pulling that off. And we did it. And at one point I was talking to the crew where we're talking about we're going to do the shots. And they said, so we opened one door. I'm like, you don't have to just open one door. You can open both doors. And they're like, well, that's usually how we do it. I'm like, oh, I know. But you don't have to hide it. This is designed for you not to hide and to embrace. And it was like, huh. And a little radio to Russell, and he was down with it, of course, because I was talking about it up until that. So that's the shot, and you see Shooty come, and both doors are wide open, and it just makes me so happy. But because behind him is an LED screen, and it is a little window that shows the control room as a 3D environment that's fully real. I mean, meaning that you can move around and you see the perspective change.
Yeah. And
that window is hidden behind the police box because the actual police box prop is there, but they took the back off of it. Instead of having the photograph of the inside, it's just open. And we made a little window to hide behind it when the camera was moving around. Yeah. So you have the battlefield, which again is fully realized and interactive, and the camera moves around and the perspective changes. But also, when the doors are open to the police box, you see 40 feet, 50 feet inside of it, and it's what it's supposed to do, basically. Yeah. And that was a bucket list thing for me, and it was great. And everybody on the show was just super complimentary, and they were into it. And I think maybe Russell said something like, "This is what's beautiful about the show is that the show gives back to people that want to give back to the show." And it's like the circle. I'm paraphrasing hard here, but I'm going to call it the circle of life, where it's it's just passion for the show, and you want to do great things for the show. And that was my little thing with my team. And initially, I think my team's like, "Why are you obsessing about this?" And then, one or two of the team members also knew why this is important, but then we got into it and they understood. But initially, like, shouldn't we be worrying about the battlefield? I'm like, yes, definitely. But I'm going to help create the inside. And in my off hours, while in that month leading up to the shoot, I was actually modeling the inside of the console room to get it ready to give to my team to put it in the scene. But while they were working on the battlefield, I was working on the control room. So that's how you do it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you got to achieve that, because it really does pay off. And it's just so cool that we can actually see that. Like, if you're there on set as well, you can look in and it's essentially real, Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think the show seems to attract, it seems to happen quite a lot that people who are hardcore fans do end up working on it and contributing to it, which is nice.
Yeah, that's what made me fall in love with everybody at the show in this area of the country. Also, is just the family and kindness and support and love. It's just all there, and how could you not like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm guessing since you first started working in visual effects to now, it's probably quite a different world in terms of the industry. If anyone's listening who's interested in, maybe starting out in their career and is interested in getting into that field, would you have any advice or tips for them?
I would say if you're interested in doing it, there's so much content on YouTube to learn how to do it. I wouldn't if you can't afford to go to a school or can't afford to take classes in it, do that, of course, if you can. But, there's so much content on the internet to help you I'd still do that to this day. Like I'm learning Blender, which is a 3D software, and, I know of it, but not enough. And I just go to YouTube and I can instantly find tutorials on how to do stuff. And learning Unreal, the game engine's the same thing. There's so much stuff out there. So what I would suggest, if you're interested in doing it, is to attempt to replicate something. Like for me, I was replicating Doctor Who to train myself on how to do it. And by trying to copy something that you love first to learn how to do it, you'll find I enjoyed this part of the process. I enjoyed this part of I didn't enjoy this part. It was hard and yucky. I don't like that one. But that is where you might find your specialty in the process, because visual effects encompasses a whole bunch of stuff: building objects, painting those objects, animating machines, doing camera work, compositing images together. That's visual effects. So it covers a whole bunch of stuff. It's like building a building, like an office building. There's a lot of stuff that happens. So, by going through it and replicating what you love and looking at tutorials and stuff, you'll find stuff that really appeals to you, and that's where you focus and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I think that's helpful in so many things, isn't it? If you're really passionate about something, starting off by replicating what you really like. There was the same for me when I was, say, a teenager, and I got a great obsession with Murray Gold's scores for Doctor Who. And I was, I was spending hours and hours recreating those scores on my notation software. And through doing that for years, it taught me so much about orchestration and stuff that when I was starting to write my own music, it was, I found myself being influenced by what I'd learned.
That's beautiful. That's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a goal, and it's hard to know where to start. So if you just start enjoying the music that you love and trying to replicate it, it's just it's a great way to learn and teach yourself. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Great for you, by the way. That's amazing.
So was there anything else about your Doctor Who experience that you wanted to share?
I made lots of friends, and they will be friends forever. I mean, honestly, some of them, were trying to help us move over here. Like, here's who we would suggest if you need housing temporarily, we use for the show kind of thing. So it's that kind of level of kindness. But I also worked in the Children in Need special with David Tennant. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. And it was David Tennant's birthday on the day that we shot one of the days for the special. And we were rolling, but we weren't. And he comes out doing his thing as the doctor's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then he comes out and he realizes the entire crew is out in the set, and we all sing happy birthday to him. And that was pretty awesome. And the other thing that was cool for me is that when the stage door was open and we had the set there, and the Dalek was sitting there on the podium, Jinx Monsoon walked by. And they were interested and was like, "Oh my God." I said, come on in. And they came up and were just amazed at being here. And I said something like, "I am so happy for you. The character you're playing is such a good match for you." And we're, me and my husband are huge fans of yours. And they said, "I can't believe I'm here." I'm like, "I can't believe I'm here." And it was just a really great moment, a big hug. And that was it. So yeah, just little moments like that. Oh, when I first went onto the set of the TARDIS, holy shit.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Imagine. It's just being shown the set. My mind was blown. I just could not believe how massive it was and how beautiful it was. And all the detail everybody put their very best into everything that I saw. It was just amazing. And every time that I walk by that police box, knowing that it's the real thing, there's something about it. It's such an icon. I would just take a moment by myself. I'm like, this is pretty amazing. I'm really, really lucky to be here. Yeah.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing all your stories and your experience. It's been a joy.
Absolutely. We
will leave it there.